Welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Hello and welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We are having a great time bringing some wonderful guests to you. We've had anywhere from some marketeers, Sugar Ray Leonard not too long ago, David Meltzer, very inspirational. We've had some doctors and really across the board. And today I'm thrilled to bring Peter Taunton to the podcast. Peter, how are you today in Florida?
Hi, I'm fantastic, Jim. Thanks for having me.
You know, I was grateful for the introduction through David Meltzer's team, and man, they've really brought me some great people for my podcast. And looking at your story and what you have achieved in your social media, I'm really excited to talk to you today because I think that you're just a pillar of light during these tough times for people, and I can't wait to dig into some content here.
No, thanks, Jim. That's kind of you to say. And as I said earlier, nothing's off the table. I'm happy and free to talk about anything you'd like.
Well, I really appreciate that. You know, we typically talk about entrepreneurship and starting businesses or making career choices in life. And I would love to talk or hear the story of Lyft Brands and how you got started. Maybe a little bit of background before that, you know, what you did for career choices or college and things like that. But give us some of your history.
Well, I grew up the youngest of 7 kids in a rural town right there in Minnesota. And my dad he owned a small grocery store in our hometown. And that was the catalyst for me. Actually, where I got started, when I was 8 years old, my father gave me an opportunity to work selling popcorn outside the front of his grocery store. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that some of the lessons I was going to learn at 8 years old selling popcorn would carry through to what I do today, just in terms of chasing down business, making it happen, and putting yourself out there. And don't wait for things to happen, kind of make things happen.
Yeah.
So that was a great opportunity for me, just getting into business. And at a young age, about 13 years old, I picked up a racquetball racket for the first time, and it was a sport for me that I adopted very easily. I very quickly became very good at it, and within 3-4 years, I was a touring pro, and that's actually what opened the doors for me getting into the health and wellness space. So that's kind of how I segued from a child into the health and fitness space. Traveling around the country, seeing all these clubs gave me an opportunity to see health clubs in many different lights, in many different fashions. And one day I had an opportunity to turn around a failing club, and that was the catalyst for me to start building this wellness empire. There was a club that was failing miserably. There was 5 owners in this club, and they were feeding it every year. They were feeding it a couple $100,000. And so they were getting a steady diet of that, and they were disenchanted. And I was familiar with the club, and I told the guys one day, if you ever want to turn this club around, give me a call. Well, about a year and a half later, my phone rang, and it was these guys, and they said, look, we'd like you to come back and try to turn our club around, and here's what we'll pay you. We'll pay you $16,000 a year, but if you make the club profitable, which it's not, we'll let you buy us out with the profits that it generates.
Wow.
Well, that was the opportunity. And that's the opportunity I needed. I just needed my shot, and I took the opportunity, and with no budget, with a starving business that was failing, I just leaned in and got creative with a business with no capital by bartering, and you know, the rest is history. I turned it around. In 5 years, I ended up turning that business around from losing $200,000 a year to making $250,000 a year. So it was just done through hard work, being very creative, and then changing the entire look and feel of the business, the culture of the business, the passion behind the business, making sure that everyone who was on the team, every one of my employees was pulling deep on the oars, that truly loved what they do, and they weren't just there picking up a paycheck every couple of weeks.
Yeah, Peter.
So it worked out.
Peter, what was it while you were at the club that gave you the confidence to believe that you can turn that place around, enough so where you went to the owners and said, I can turn this place around?
Well, that particular club was a club that I played at as a child, so I was very familiar with the management that they had in the facility, because playing racquetball at a high level, I was in that club for 4 to 5 hours a day, every day. So I could see that the management within that facility, the manager was not engaged with the members. He was not engaged with the community. And you're really, and if you have a consumer-facing business, it starts there. Yeah, it starts by how you embrace people when they walk in the door. Do they feel loved? Do they feel appreciated? And then, furthermore, what's the condition of your business? I mean, I don't care if your equipment is brand new or old. Having a filthy facility is inexcusable. That's just straight away lack of effort. So the club was not clean. So I just checked all the boxes on everything we did. We cleaned the club from corner to corner. I bartered for paint and carpet and plants and electrical and plumbing. And because when you have a club that's not full, you have room for more people in the facility. So I being that I didn't have any working cash, the only thing I had to give was memberships. And so for me, it worked out, having a lot of those business owners say, look, I'll give you some carpet. You give me memberships for all of my employees. That was a creative way for me to get things done. And when I started making the improvements in the club, I didn't sprinkle a little bit all over the facility. I literally started in the lobby, because I knew that I wanted people to, when they walk in the front door, you never get a second chance for a first impression. I wanted them to see fresh carpet and fresh paint, and I wanted them to know that, look, this club is going to be dramatically different moving forward. You need to be patient with me so I can make the changes, but the staff is going to be engaging, and we're going to be loving, and we're going to help get you to the promised land of whatever those wellness goals are for you.
What I love about this example that you're giving is, I've been in the restaurant business my whole life, and I walk into a restaurant and I'm hopefully enjoying my meal, but I look around and I see all the things that I would improve, or all the things that we could do to make the place better. And you literally took those thoughts and put them into action. I think there's so many opportunities in our own lives to do exactly what you did if we were just confident enough to go to that owner and say, hey, by the way, I could help here if you really needed it. And here you turned it into a career and an opportunity.
Yeah, I did, and you know what? Thank God that the guys believed in me too. There's a lot of things that had to fall into place. They had to believe in me, and once I could check that box, then the rest of it was focusing on the business. And let's face it, we had to move fast, because you have a business that's failing, so you need to put things in action very quickly to try to turn the tide from losing money to making money. Just trying to get it to a place where it comes reasonably close to cash flowing. Forget about making money. For me, the first thing I wanted to do was turn the business around. In fact, it's funny with these guys. The first year that I had the club, they went from losing $200,000 to losing $120,000, and I felt good about it. I said, guys, they still lost 120, so they were still upset about it. But I said, look, I saved you $80,000 first year.
Yeah.
So. And, so I just looked at, and by the second year going into the third year, I had turned that club from losing money to breaking even. So it didn't take long. It just needed a lot of hard work and a lot of passion. And the same passion that I had, I expected all of my staff to have as well. And they did. They understood that, getting up every day and just showing up for work was not going to be status quo anymore. You needed to show up with fire in your belly, and you be engaging, and all of those things were very, very important.
When we look at the workforce in today's environment, and I don't mean COVID environment, I mean pre-COVID, but in the last 5 years, with the advent of computer technology and cell phones and all these things that make our lives either simpler or maybe sometimes more complex, I think oftentimes we're not taught some of those skills that you're referring to as leaning in, working hard, and finding, as I've heard you say so many times, is getting doers. People that actually will get out there and get their hands dirty, and as he suggested, first impressions and all those things. How did you find doers so early in the game, and what are your thoughts or advice for people that are looking to get into the workforce or are already in the workforce in terms of being a doer?
Well, I think being a doer is something that you inherently learn over time, and maybe it's because you've had a firsthand experience of watching what the difference is. For me, it was my father, and one of the things I appreciate about my dad at his grocery store is he did not put himself above any task, meaning you could see him. Now, he's the owner of the grocery store. You could see him shoveling the sidewalk. You could see him working the cash register. You would see him stocking shelves. Nothing was off the table for him. And I tell you what that does, it creates a culture within your workplace that all the employees, they say, look, this guy, he's not afraid. He gets right in the trenches with you. And I think people appreciate that. And I think they appreciate that even today. And some people they're willing to give whatever it is in terms of to make the business successful or to make the customer experience great. You and I, we witness that all the time. You're in the restaurant business. You know when you have a server who gets customer service, and you know when you have someone who just doesn't flat out get it, right? And I think that's applicable in a number of different industries.
Yeah, it's interesting. This has been many years ago. I was interviewing a very highly educated student from UCI. I think they were on their second master's, and what a wonderful college that is. And we were talking about service and running a restaurant. And I don't know what made me ask the question, but I said, you're getting out of your car, you're on your way into the restaurant for your shift, and you see a pile of trash that's been left out in the parking lot in front of our store. What do you do? And the person said, well, when I get inside, I'd tell the manager that there's some trash out there. Now, when you talk about being a doer and leaning in and not afraid to do anything like your father, literally the answer is pick up the trash and throw it away because the place looks messy outside. But, people just aren't always taught some of those skills or that thought process. And I just love when people bring those values back out into the world in terms of being doers and leaning in, not being afraid to get your hands dirty.
I love it. And I love people that are problem solvers. They don't bring problems to work. They're problem solvers. And, you can tell that you can tell the character of somebody, you can tell the work ethic of somebody. I love it when I see when even for me in this day, like if I'm working out at a club, I don't work out exclusively at just the gyms I own. I work out at other clubs as well that I'm just simply a member. But Lifetime Fitness being one of the clubs that I frequent, if I'm walking across a parking lot and I see a Gatorade bottle in the parking lot, I'll grab it. If I happen to be walking past it, I'm not going to go out of my way. But if I'm walking past it, I'll pick it up and I'll throw it in the trash can, which is literally right by the door as I come in. That's just my nature. Just because I'm being a business owner, I know what that's like. I'm not combing the parking lot looking for trash, but when I see things like that, I pick it up. Just like if I'm doing something out in public, it happened this morning. I was going for a run, and this woman had a little baggie with some rice cakes in it, of all things. Well, she dropped the little bit. She dropped the baggie, and I'm running. I could have easily kept on running, and I just stopped. I picked up the baggie and I handed it to her. She was on her bicycle. It would have prompted her to have to get off her bike. It's number one, it's being kind, but number two, it's just having a little common sense. It's right there. It's no big deal. Lean down, pick it up, and hand it to her. Yeah. And bringing that into the workplace and how you treat people and how you live your life. I say this all the time, especially now since I stepped down as a CEO. It's how do we want to show up in life every day? Who do you want to be? Because, you can talk a good game, but if you don't put it into action, it's just lip service, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, people are watching. My wife went to help an elderly couple in the parking lot the other day at the store to load their groceries, and she had to walk pretty far across the parking lot to do that, but she recognized it, and she came back. I said, gosh, that was so sweet of you to do that. And she says, well, my kids are watching, and I want to set a good example for them because we had the kids with us. I thought, what an amazing principle to think about, because the kids